Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and today I want to chat with you guys a little bit about doing a barbell movement followed by a dumbbell movement for the same body part and why this can have a lot of benefits. And I'll give you guys some examples of what I'm talking about, and then we'll explain what we get out of it. And again, this is a great way to create large amounts of hypertrophy and to hit muscles from a variety of angles while still using very, very similar movement patterns. And something I say oftentimes is that the best exercise for any muscle is to do two really good exercises for that muscle, right? To do two good exercises for that muscle. And this represents a good way to achieve that because we know based on the data that we have that using a little more exercise variation, using more than one exercise for a muscle, even for the same total amount of volume, tends to cause slightly more hypertrophy, right? And it makes sense when you think about the fact that certain parts of a muscle may get fatigued more than others, and certain fibers might get reached a little better than others on a couple different movements, even on relatively non-complex exercises. So some examples could be, and these could be taken at different angles. You don't have to do it just flat. This could be on a decline, it could be on an incline. You know, we can change angles around. Would be a barbell bench press followed by a dumbbell bench press. And if you want to give yourself even more variation there, pause with the barbell, right? So we get a dead stop off the chest and use a stretch reflex with the dumbbells, which is easier to do. So that's one example. And I'll discuss some others as I get a little further into the video, but stop and think through for a moment how this works. With a barbell, we can usually use more weight, right? We get a little better overall mechanical tension because we're locked into a path, right? Our arms can't shift around as much. We're locked into a tighter path because we have a barbell to stabilize both arms together. They're connected. They're connected. Now, a lot of people come up with these silly ideas that dumbbells work each side better, you know, with less chance of it being uneven, but that's actually not true. Dumbbells can actually make that worse. They can make that worse because of their ability to destabilize. So actually, it's easier to get better balance left to right using a barbell. But again, we get more mechanical tension. We can do big, heavy exercises, and a lot of times a lot of weight for a lot of reps. Because usually we can't use as much weight with dumbbells, so we get mechanical tension. All right. Downside with something like this, we're slightly limited in the range of motion, and we are kind of in a little more fixed bar path, so that when we start failing, the weakest muscle is going to limit us. Whatever our weakest muscle is at that exact grip width and hand position, because we can't really change it once we start, it's going to fatigue the most, and when it fatigues, that's it, we're done. So that muscle, whether it's the anterior deltoids, the lower pecs, arguably even the triceps for some people, whatever muscle fails first is probably going to get the largest amount of training stimulus. And it's not to say that everything isn't getting muscle growth, it's just that it may receive an extra effective rep. Okay? It might get one more effective rep, because that one muscle might be hitting failure and the others are still another rep or two away. We go over to dumbbells, what happens? We have more freedom of movement. Okay, now we also have the potential for a larger range of motion, and more range of motion can sometimes increase hypertrophy. Now people say that it always does. No, it doesn't always do it. It's not guaranteed. But again, you take something like a dumbbell chest press, we are getting a little more range of motion at the bottom, which is where the most mechanical tension is placed upon the pec. Also, what happens as we go? It destabilizes a little bit more. Well, when we destabilize, what happens? The weakest muscles get used less. So as our form changes as we get further into it, we might grip closer, we might grip wider, the elbows might turn out more, they might tuck more, depending upon where you're strongest. You're going to compensate. If you're just banging out reps like you see me doing above, you're not pausing, you're just getting that stretch reflex, and you're just going till you pretty much reach failure, till you reach fatigue. Your form changes through the set. And when that happens, the weakest muscles get used a little bit less. The muscles, we shift form around as we go because we try to use the muscles that are getting fatigued the most, the least. So the end result is that things like the pecs and front delts or triceps, whatever, they get a little more even training because the weakest muscles get used a little less. We'll compensate to let the stronger muscles take over a little more as they get fatigued. Well, then we end up with a closer amount of total effective reps and maybe a little more of the chest, the muscle fibers get worked because our form shifts around a little bit. Okay, this is a big benefit. And we could apply this to a lot of things. We could apply the same thing to rowing. Right? We apply the same thing to rowing. We can do rows with a barbell. Right? We can move big, heavy weights. Right? We're going to be limited on our range of motion because we're going to hit our chest, just like with the bench press. Hey, but we can move a lot of weight, work a lot of muscles through the body, secondary muscles, stabilizers, a little bit of isometrics. And isometrics are not that great for hypertrophy, but they can contribute. Okay, so we can get a lot done here. But we're in the same situation. We're locked into that bar path, right? We're locked in. So what happens if we do a barbell row followed by some sort of dumbbell row? Then what happens? Well, we get a lot of the same benefit that we just got with the barbell. Plus, we can get a different grip angle, right? Just like with the dumbbells, we can pronate our hands more. It changes the angles of the muscles being worked on the bench. So the same thing on the rowing. You have a full overhand grip, and then we can take a little more of a hammer grip when we're rowing. Right? We work muscles a little bit differently, but we get the same benefit, don't we? When we use the dumbbells, we can get a little more range of motion. Okay? We get more range of motion. That's a big perk. What else? What else do we get from it? As we fatigue, we will change our position. And in my case, I tend to my hands probably turn in a little bit more as I get fatigued on a row. Why? Because I have really strong lats. My lats are probably stronger than my mid traps, lower traps, things like that. So as we change that hand position, the weaker muscles that are giving out don't get used as much, and then we rely upon the stronger muscles. Well, what does that do? It ensures more overall development. Now people say, couldn't we just do dumbbells all the time, get that benefit? Well, not necessarily. You could, but by doing a barbell first, you're ensuring that your strongest muscles in these movements are really getting, or your weakest muscles are getting hit the hardest. And then when we do the dumbbells, we get a little more even development. Right? Well, that combination works really well. And we could apply this to other stuff. You could do the same thing for overhead pressing. Same idea. We could do it for smaller movements like curls, tricep extensions. And in some extreme cases, we could apply it to the lower body. Things like split squats, Romanian deadlifts. You know, we can go pretty far with it. I think it works better for upper body, but it's not limited exclusively to that. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.